So today, I want to start a new series. And I want us to be thinking of something that is pretty significant. In fact, I want to address probably what is, I think, probably one of the biggest complaints that most people have today. I know I've been guilty of mentioning this, of complaining about this. I imagine you have as well. That in today's world, today's culture, in today's society, we just never have enough time or money. Anybody with me? So I'm not alone in this, right? I think probably the biggest complaint, and I know there's other things that are big on the plate too, but one of the things I hear more than anything else, one of the things I've been most guilty of saying more than anything else, is two things to never have enough of, never have enough time. The week seems to go by way too quick. The day's gone way before I know it. And if only I had more time, an extra day or two, I could get a lot more done, right? Anybody with me? And if only I had more money. Anybody at all with me on that one? Right now you've come to church and you haven't even been able to take your mind off of the fact that you need money for something, somewhere, somehow, right? Kids need money, it needs money, we got groceries, we got this, that. If only we had more money, more time, life would be good. Both of these are limited resources. We get that. We know that. We really do only have so much time, and we all have the same amount of time. We only have so much when it comes to finances. And of course, the difference with money and time is that with time, we literally cannot gain any more. What we have is what we have. Now we can work on and talk, and this is a great discussion for us to have at some point at another time. We'll talk about setting some margins and some boundaries and letting some things go and that sort of thing. And so where, kind of, makes it appear like we're getting more time, but it's really, time is just limited. This is all that we have. Money, on the other hand, it is possible to earn, to gain, to get more stuff, right? I mean, a better job sometimes nets a better paycheck. For those of you that have graduated, the biggest key that you're going to want to learn is this. A job helps you get some money, right? Mom and Dad said amen on that one. I mean, it is possible we can get a bigger job, better job, we can earn more money, we can get more money, we can get more stuff. Those of you that you kind of go, man, if only I had more stuff, right? You can go out and get more stuff. You can collect and build and add and that kind of stuff. But isn't it funny that no matter how much we get, no matter where we're at, we still have this complaint that is not unique to us. It's across the board. If only we had more time, and if only we had more money, no matter how much we currently have. That complaint is still there. I want to share something with you, a story, a teaching that Jesus gave us that actually he uses a story to teach us this. It's Luke chapter 12. If you've not found it yet, take a quick moment, find Luke chapter 12, and we're going to start verse 13, page 727. In the church Bible, we're given the story a couple different places. We're told this teaching in Matthew's Gospel. We're also told this in Luke's Gospel. And so I want to read it from Luke here. Verse 13 of chapter 12. Are you with me? And see what Jesus has to say about this whole thing. And then we're going to break it down here a little bit. Jesus is teaching, and he's got a big crowd that's following him and listening to him, and he's teaching some really incredible stuff. Someone in the crowd raised his hand, I guess, spoke out, said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Can you sense the landmine that Jesus is about ready to step onto here? I mean, I don't know if you've got brothers, sisters, family that you've had money issues before, but that's a landmine, right? Teacher, tell my brother, he got this inheritance, tell him to split it with me. And this is Jesus, wisest man ever lived, Son of God. He replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge and arbitrary between you. Arbiter between you. Right? Pretty good answer. In other words, Jesus saying, don't drag me into this. Who made me the judge between the two of you? He went on though to say to them, watch out. And maybe he even said this more so to the rest of the crowd who heard this question. Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. And then he went on to tell them this story, this parable. He says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. It was a good year of planting the crops, cropping the plants. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I mean, I've got this huge surplus. What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. And then he got this idea. He said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and I'll build bigger barns. And then I'll store my surplus grain. And then I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain now laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, retire, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. What a harsh statement from God, right? Can I paraphrase it just a little bit? You idiots. You've got all of this stuff. You've got life set for a long time, and you're thinking you're just going to retire. You're going to sit back. You're going to enjoy life the rest of your days. But what you don't realize is the rest of your days is like now. What good is all this stuff? What good is all of these possessions that you have? Who's going to get all this stuff that you've set aside for yourself? So then Jesus, he told the story to really illustrate this idea of be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. And then he goes on to talk to his disciples. And I think he might probably gather a smaller crowd around him. After having this discussion with the bigger crowd, he says to his disciples, listen, I want to tell you, do not worry about your life. Don't worry about what you're going to eat or about your body, what you will wear, for life is more than food and more than the body, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap, they have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? And then he goes on again, talking to his disciples. Look at the flowers, the wildflowers in the field. Consider how they grow. They don't labor or spin. In other words, they don't make their own clothing. All right? Yet I tell you that even Solomon, in all of his splendor, the king of Israel, had all kinds of wealth. In all of his splendor, he was not even dressed like one of these flowers in the field are dressed. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it, for the pagan world runs after all of these things. Your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. And he goes on to say to them, don't be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the poor, provide purses for yourself that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What an incredible teaching by Jesus Christ. A teaching that maybe we even know, or if we were to stop and think about it, it's like, well, yeah, this makes sense. But it's a teaching that we often forget about. And I think we have to be reminded about it often because we are all, let's be honest, pretty familiar with storing up treasures for ourselves here on earth. Amen? And some of you are going, no, not me. Let me ask your spouse, how many treasures are in the attic? And basement, and closet. I got quiet. I touched a nerve there. I'm sorry. We do pretty well at storing up treasures for ourselves. And for you husbands that are sitting there going, yeah, you ought to see my wife. Let's go out in the garage. Yeah. Oh, now the church is kind of alive. Preach, Pastor. Preach. Now we're talking. I mean, when you mess with my sewing room, that's one thing, but let's talk about the garage, right? We are pretty good at storing up treasures for ourselves. And here's what happens to those treasures, right? Jesus says this is what happens. Sometimes the thief comes in and steals them, right? Sometimes you may literally have a break-in. How many of us are worried about, I left something in my car, I don't want to get stolen or whatever. There's the potential of thieves coming in. Somebody likes something that you have. That was one of the biggest lessons we tried to help our kids when they were young in school, right? They'll get a new present for school, from their birthday, for Christmas. Well, I want to take it in and show all of my friends, right? This new whatever it is. And we try to help them understand. Do you understand when you take that in and you show everybody, you've got to keep a really good eye on it because you know what happens, right? You set it down and next thing you know, it's gone, right? Sometimes things just kind of disintegrate and maybe the thieves don't come in and steal them, but just about everything we have breaks down and tears up at some point in life, doesn't it? That new whatever it is that you bought 10 years ago, 5 years ago, for some of you last year, you're already looking at a replacement for it, right? The moths, things disintegrate, things just kind of tear apart. Matthew tells this whole story of Jesus and his teaching, and Matthew says it this way. He says, don't store up for yourself, Jesus saying these words, but through Matthew's perspective, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Vermin, mice. If you got a King James version of that, you'll see that it was translated where moths and rust doesn't corrode. And that word is actually translated. It can be translated rust or vermin. It's an eating away. It's a corrosion. It's that destroying in that kind of way. And I want to show you a few things that to me are just heartbreaking, and maybe for you as well. Some pictures I found just doing a quick search of some things that at one point was pretty prized and is no longer prized. I know someone's going, oh my, right? How about this? That one breaks my heart. Old caboose or something. I don't know what that is. It's a building, just rusted, torn apart. This one is really sad because one poor child had this at one point. And boy, I can just imagine the hills that they rode down and the sidewalks that they traversed, just rusted out and destroyed. Storing up on earth moth and rust, vermin, thieves, destruction. Things are nice for a while, but nothing stays nice forever, does it? Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You got that thing sitting in your yard or in your basement or whatever, and you're going, one day I'm going to restore this. One day I'm going to bring it back to restore the luster of yesteryears, and there it still sits. And it's not fixing on its own, is it? and keeps rusting away. If that's maybe not the most discouraging and depressing thing of life in itself. But this is what Jesus said to us. He said this, where your treasure is, that is where your heart will be also. The Greek word for treasure here, it means treasure or wealth, but it also means a treasury where we store our wealth and our treasure. And it's sort of like wherever your treasure is, wherever you store, whatever it is that you're investing in, that's where your heart will be. And the Greek word for heart is the seat of our emotions or the passion that we have within us. So in other words, wherever we invest our treasure, our time, our resources, our energy, our strengths, whatever we invest in, that's where our passion is going to be. And think about that. Isn't that true? Whatever it is that you have, whatever it is that you're most passionate about right now, most likely that's where you're spending all of your interest and your time and your money and everything else. For some of you, it may be vehicles, and you're just passionate about vehicles. I tell Misty this all the time. It doesn't make me any better than anybody else. I just don't know vehicles. I care less about vehicles. We'll be riding down the road and family go, wow, look at that car. And I go, there's all kinds of cars around here. What makes that? Yeah, but it was like a 1956 or something, since Chevy something. And I go, there's some people they're into that. They invest all their money. They invest their time. They're in the garage every night tinkering on this and that, and that's fantastic. But they're investing time and money and everything else. Guess where their passion is? Guess where their heart is? And there's nothing wrong with that, but we understand the principle that where our treasure, where we invest our time, where we invest our money, where we invest it, that's where our heart, that's where our passion is. And this is what Jesus was trying to get his disciples to understand, is this, that what you invest in is where your passion is. And if you're investing in stuff that's going to rust and disintegrate and decompose, get stolen, and isn't going to be worth much a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, we've wasted a lot of time and resources, haven't we? And I think he wanted his disciples to really get this point, to understand that at the end of life, or even at the end of the day, would you rather have a life full of junk, or would you rather know that you've invested in things that are eternal and things that really make a difference in God's kingdom? And this is what Jesus was trying to have his disciples. He says, you know what, they're worried about their father's inheritance and that the brother's going to split it fairly and all that kind of stuff. And in 20 years, that's not even going to make a difference. And he's telling his disciples, don't let that greed take over you. Don't let it take charge of you. Don't let it control where your heart is. Don't let it control where your passions are going to be. Don't let all of that material stuff guide and direct who you are, because that kingdom, those things, that's a totally different kingdom than what Jesus is saying, than what I'm proposing. I'm proposing a kingdom of God that has nothing to do with all this stuff. There's something more significant going on. And so my question for us today, as we start wrestling with this, and over the next couple of weeks as we wrestle with this idea of this eternal kingdom versus this temporary kingdom, I got to ask us this question, and I want us to wrestle with this. Where is your treasure? Where is your heart? What's important to you? And I want us to ask this question. What's more important? That we trust in an eternal God? Or are we going to allow the things that are rusting to take our heart away? Put it real simple. Are you going to trust or rust? Are you going to trust in what God has in this eternal kingdom and make an eternal investment in His kingdom, or are you going to just continue to allow life to rust around you? I believe this series is going to help increase our faith. If we're going to place greater trust in Christ, it will increase our faith. It will challenge us to place our full trust in the kingdom of God rather than temporary things of this world. And I want us to, in order to really get going down this road, we've got to kind of really look at our mindset and a heart attitude to see what it is God wants of us. We've got to begin to put our trust in Him and some important things here. The first thing I want us to see is this: we have got to begin to trust more in God's perception. Well, here's our, I know some of you like filling in blanks, so here you go, I'm going to fill in these blanks. Here's our big idea: to invest in God's eternal kingdom rather than chasing earthly stuff that is temporary. That's where we're going to be going over the next few weeks. And today, I want us to look, we've got to trust in God's perspective. He says this: consider the ravens. They don't sow, they don't reap, they have no storerooms, no barns, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than birds? Right? It is believing in God's perception, His perspective of who we are and what we mean to Him, in our relationship with Him. Here's the truth, and you don't have to write this one out. There's no blanks for you here, but here's the truth that you want to write out today and you want to grasp. It is my relationship to God that makes me valuable. And some of you kind of go, well, that's a lot to write down. I want you to take them home. You got a pen in hand, you got paper. I want you to actually write that sentence down, though, because I want you to get that in your heart. It is my relationship to God that makes me valuable. And you say it for you. It's your relationship to God that makes you valuable. See, some believe that it's their riches that make them valuable. I'm important because of the car I drive. I'm important because of the clothes I wear, the designer clothes. I'm important and I'm valuable because of the vacations that I take during the year. Or I'm valuable because of the house that I live in, or the number and size of TV screens in my house, or the paycheck that I bring home. For some people, their value comes from all of this stuff. And when you and I believe and understand that it's the temporary, if you believe that it's the temporary stuff that makes you significant, then you're trusting in the riches rather than trusting in God's perception, His perspective on you and who you are. There's a story that's told of how one night a group of thieves broke into a jewelry store. And they didn't steal anything. Instead, what they did is they simply switched all of the price tags in the jewelry store. Right? The next day, no one could tell what was valuable and what was cheap. The expensive jewels had suddenly become cheap, and the costume jewelry, which was worth just a few bucks, had virtually become, it become this great value because of the price tag that had been placed on it. Customers who thought they were purchasing valuable gems were getting fakes. Those who couldn't afford the higher priced items were leaving the stores with expensive treasures. And in our world today, someone came and switched up all the price tags on us. In our world, it's hard to tell what's of value and what is not. Great value is sometimes given to this accumulation of wealth and material things and the power that goes with it. And the world puts a high price tag on popularity and prestige and beauty and fame. But Jesus taught us these things are virtually worthless. But the price that the world has put on it is deceiving us. For so many people, their heart is embedded in this broken world. They can't even think about eternity because they believe that it's their stuff that makes them who they are. Their heart can't even come close to God because they trust in the earthly, rusting treasures. And that's where their heart is. Here's the real truth. You are priceless to God.
Amen.
You're priceless to Him. You're valuable beyond compare. None of the stuff that you think is so valuable means squat in God's economy. It really doesn't. And you've got to learn to trust in God's perspective on this. You've got to see it through His eyes. You've got to see it through His lens, not the world's lens. The second thing I want us to see today that we've got to trust in is we've got to trust in God's provisions. We've got to trust in His provisions. It says, don't set your heart on what you eat or drink. Don't worry about it. The pagan world runs after all of those things. Your Father, though, knows what you have need of. and He'll provide for you. Here's the other truth that I want you to write down. And again, I want to encourage you just to write it out. Just write it out longhand. Because I want you to make sure you let this get into your mind and heart. God has provided enough for me. God has provided enough for me. And I want to ask us each this question. Do you believe right now that you have enough? What is it that you think that you're lacking right now? And then let me ask this question. If you receive that one thing that you think you're lacking, will that be enough? How many of us, again, we've upgraded a perfectly good phone before, or we bought a new computer, or we've traded in a decent car because we wanted something newer and better? How many times, and this hits me hard every time I think about this, how many times have you gone to the bottom of a bowl of your favorite food and your favorite dessert? For me, it's ice cream, right? Rocky Road ice cream with not the marshmallow cream that people, but the chunks of marshmallows. You know what I'm talking about? Like real hard, real live, whole marshmallows. Almonds. Good Rocky Road ice cream. Give me a bowl of that. I eat it. The most sad time of the day is when that last bite goes in, right? You know what I'm saying? Oh, if only I had more, right? Our human nature craves for more and is never content with what we have. It's always more, 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 more. Trusting in God's provision is getting to the point where we are completely content with what we have, knowing that God has provided for our needs. I think where you're going, you know what, I need this, I need this, I need this. I'm wondering if God is saying to you, no. Would you just trust that I've given you everything that you need right now? Just trust in my grace and mercy for you right now. Now I want us to understand this, and we've got to grasp this part of this as well. These verses, and what we're talking about today, is not giving us an excuse to just sit back and not work or not save or not do what we're supposed to do. In fact, if you look at Jesus' story, that's the thing that's got this guy called an idiot. Right? A fool. Because he figured if I can just get enough, if I can have enough, then I can sit back and take it easy and I don't have to do another thing the rest of my life. I'll have everything I need. And for some of us, we work all of our lives going, someday I'm going to get to that point, right? Where I need to sit back and just take it easy for the rest of my life. Amen. Yeah. And for many of us, it's an elusive thing that we're chasing. And so God's not saying to us, look, just take it easy. He's saying, listen, if we look at what he's really saying, he's saying that the birds don't sow, they don't reap, they don't store away. The lilies don't make their own clothes, and yet God takes care of them and provides for them. If he takes care of them that don't do these things, how much more will he take care of those of you who do these things, who sow and reap and spend their own clothes? He's not saying don't sow and reap and spend your own clothes and take care of life. He's not saying don't do those things. He's saying, listen, if he takes care of those that don't do those things, how much more is he going to take care of those who do seek and to work? He's not saying don't work hard, don't save for your future. Instead, he's saying don't lose faith in God. Don't worry, work hard, but trust God. And for us as graduates, for those of you that are graduates, this is not contradictory to what I just said to us earlier. You need to chase your dreams. You need to go after all that life has for you. You do need to seek and chase after and work hard and do those things that God has placed on you on earth to do. Go and do. Don't just sit back. Listen, do not just sit back in your parents' basement for the next 15 to 20 years. Go and do and work hard. But understand that what God has given you really is enough. That's a tricky balance, isn't it? To realize that there is more out there that I can pursue, and yet to still be content with what God has given me. then it doesn't matter if I don't reach that, if I don't get that, if I don't get that new car, if I don't get that new job promotion, if I don't get all that, if I don't get that new house, if all of this doesn't come to me, then God is still good. And I do believe that He is still giving me everything that I need right now. To chase your dreams, but be content with what God has given you and done for you. Don't just sit back, take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry, but to work hard, to go after that, but to trust that He has provided enough for you. Trust His provisions. I think if we can understand that, if we can get that, that changes our whole perspective on things. I mean, we've got people that are falling into depression because their life isn't what they expected it to be at this point in their life. You know, we all remember being a graduate, right? For some of us, it was a lot longer than others. I don't want to go there, but you know what I'm talking about. You remember those days, though, of the world is at our doorstep. We got the tiger by the tail, man. We're gonna. By the time I just talked to my dad just this morning, he said, "Man, I thought by 55 I'd be retired." We all know that feeling of. And for so many people, they've gotten to the point of just being so depressed because it's like, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have what I expected. Does that make God any less good? I mean, God has taken care of us. Amen? And He has provided for us. Let's trust in His provisions. And then the third thing I want us to see is this: we've got to trust in His priorities. We've got to be able to trust His priorities. It says, seek His kingdom. Matthew says, seek first His kingdom. And these things will be given to you as well. Luke's just the same idea here is, listen, you put His kingdom first, all this other stuff will follow behind later. In fact, here's the truth. And again, I want to encourage you just to write this. Is a long one, but I encourage you to write this out. When I place God's kingdom before my kingdom, I will be blessed. Amen. God promises to take care of His children. But He's expecting us to seek after His kingdom. He wants us to be obedient in pursuing Him. And that's why I want to emphasize again to our graduates, but this is not just for our graduates. This is for every single person sitting in this room. That yes, go after and pursue, but don't do so at the expense of putting God's kingdom first. In fact, God may come to you and He may say, hey, this is my pursuit, that I want you to pursue this that has to do with my kingdom, meaning that you might have to put some of these other things on a back burner for a little bit. You know, for some of us, and this is where I get in trouble all the time, and some of you may you know, depending on what your team decides to do with what I'm about ready to say, you may get mad at me. So I just apologize ahead of time. It may not be best for your child to go to college. That's what I was afraid of. It gets real quiet. Whatever plans that you think is best for your child, that may not be God's plans for your child. God may have other plans and other things that have to do with His kingdom that He is wanting to see if your child is going to be trusting in His kingdom first before all these other things are given to them. Because here's the thing, for some people, many people, they start chasing their dream, forgetting God and His kingdom, and their priorities are all out of whack. And I want to challenge us and encourage us again, not just for the graduates, for every one of us that's in this room, that God has promised to take care of His children, and He's promised to give us the desires of our heart, but He doesn't want us to think of His kingdom as a secondary venture or something that if we get time and get around to it, then we'll do it then. For some, He is calling people to seek after His kingdom, and that may mean chasing after a missions field or a missions trip or selling their stuff and moving to another country to care for the poor. And we look at that and go, that just doesn't make sense. Junior was supposed to go to college and be an engineer. And now he's living in Africa somewhere with no money and no house and he's just living off the land. Maybe he's doing God's kingdom work, and if so, that's where he needs to be or she needs to be. And again, that's where I fall out of favor with parents sometimes. But I say that to say this. The thing that you're doing right now, that you're chasing, that you're investing your time in, that you're pouring your money in to, that keeps you busy every weekend and every day of the week, that you are obsessed with because that's all you can think about, that thing that you're investing in may not be God's kingdom work. And maybe you've sacrificed His kingdom for your kingdom. See, that's not any more popular. It's not any more popular. And I can't answer that for you. I can't tell you, yeah, you need to stop doing it. All I'm saying is we have got to check our heart and ask ourselves, are we trusting in God? Or is our life simply rusting away through this temporary stuff? What are you investing in? Where your treasure is, that is where your heart will be. So where's your heart? When I place God's kingdom before my kingdom, both God's kingdom and my kingdom will be blessed. When I put my kingdom first, it becomes a miserable existence. When we store up riches for ourselves and seek only our kingdom, all we can see and think about is ourselves. When we place God's kingdom in front of our own and seek after the things of God, we're able to see the world around us, and God makes promises to us, and He provides for us, and He cares for us. If we can trust in Him, and if we can just get to that point of trusting that this is where I'm going to put my heart, this is where I'm going to put my passion, this is where I'm going to put my money, this is where I'm going to put my time and my energy, this is where my heart is going. God's kingdom first. I can guarantee that you won't be sorry. I've never once been chasing after God's kingdom thought afterwards, I wish I'd never done that. There have been plenty of purchases and places that I've gone where I've said, boy, what a waste of money and time. You know what I'm saying? Where's your heart? Where's your kingdom? What are you building your life on? Graduates, we are going to be praying for God's best for you. And listen, I pray that you go and make lots of money. You can support your family. Remember that I was your pastor. At least take me out to dinner or something when you become rich and famous. Right? I'd love for that. And I'm not praying against it. I pray that happens. If you put God's kingdom first. Don't sacrifice His kingdom for your kingdom. Church, our job is to put God's kingdom. It's not just something nice to say to graduates. I pray God would bless us tremendously. I pray He blesses you. I pray that you get that promotion you want to have. I pray that you would get the vehicles and that vacation. And I pray that will happen for you only if you put God's kingdom first. I pray God would bless us as a church tremendously. I pray that He would just pour out so many blessings on us church we don't even know what to do with all these blessings. We've got to put His kingdom first. That's what's important. Amen. That's what we build our lives on. If we're not doing that, nothing else matters. Right. Nothing else matters. So I'm wondering today if you would just join me as we seek His will, as we ask God, what is it that you want of us, as we ask Him to speak to us beyond what my human words could do, that His Spirit would speak to us. I pray that today, whatever it is God is speaking to you, that you would listen, you would follow, you would obey. Because He's worthy. He's worthy. He's worthy to be trusted. He's worthy to be followed. He's worthy to be obeyed. His kingdom is worthy of a worthy venture to seek after. So I'm wondering if you would join me today. Would you stand as we prepare to worship and to prepare to ask God, just what is it, God, at this point that are you speaking to us about?